Welcome, guys, to the first episode of the second season of the Tru Fertility Podcast. I am so happy to have you guys back. I feel like it's been a few months. I miss sharing information with you guys and talking with you. I'm really excited for this one. Today, I am going to be covering the biggest mistakes of the 2-week wait. If you are a woman who has been trying to conceive, no doubt you've probably experienced some version of a 2-week wait, or you're going to be having one very soon. And if you've been on any chat boards, any groups, just through social media as well, everywhere talks about how 2-week wait is essentially one of the most stressful times on a fertility journey. It really feels like everything's on the line. And just to clarify, if you're not sure what a 2-week wait is, this is the time where you might be pregnant. So it's either after ovulation, if you're trying naturally, you might be pregnant, you're waiting to see if your period comes, or if you're doing an IVF or like IUI, this is the time after your transfer or your insemination, right? And so again, you feel like it's a very stressful time. Many women feel like it's a very stressful time. It can be filled with intense ups and downs. It can often feel for a lot of us that like everything's on the line and this moment of truth and this anticipation is just a little bit away. But a lot of times we make multiple mistakes while we're in the 2-week wait. And when I say mistakes, I'm saying we're making it way harder on ourselves. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I didn't know that before, but it is something that I wanted to share with you guys because I want you guys to have the best experience of your 2-week wait that you possibly can. I want to reduce that stress for you, reduce that feeling of hopelessness that can permeate that period of time. And so today I am going through 10 of the biggest mistakes that I've made, that some of my clients have made, and probably you have been making along the way. And we're going to share with you what you can do instead. So stay with me for this one. This is going to be really great. It's going to help all of you guys on your fertility journey. Welcome to the Tru Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Leah Nicole Trujillo, therapist turned fertility emotional wellness coach, and I'm here to share the tools that helped me and my clients reclaim their joy, unpause their lives, and triple their pregnancy rates. With a 100% success rate in emotional well-being and a 60% pregnancy rate, I'm here to radically transform your journey. Join me and my amazing guests for expert strategies, practical tips, and real-life trying to conceive stories with a dash of girl talk. So let's sprinkle some baby dust because it's time for Tru Fertility. So let me take you guys back to a time before I started applying mindset work on my fertility journey. This was actually on my first major 2-week wait. So for me, again, I had a version of infertility in which I had diminished ovarian reserve. I was not having periods regularly or really on my own, essentially. I had to have them triggered through hormones and things like that. So my first major 2-week wait in which I knew there was a huge possibility of being pregnant was after my first transfer, right? And for me personally, it was literally like this massive roller coaster, like on steroids. I started off really hopeful, although I was also full of anxiety as well. I was monitoring and I wrote down every single symptom or sensation that I had in my body. I kept copious notes on my phone, like all day. And I felt like a sense of control to monitor those, and then I'd compare them and kind of see how the symptoms varied day to day. And I'd get really excited when I felt symptoms were in line with what I thought would be associated with pregnancy. And then I'd get really down when I felt like it wasn't. And again, I would fluctuate between super hopeful and joyful and excited. And then it'd be like, this isn't going to work. Let me plan for my next transfer. Let me plan for what is going to happen next after this. What's my next move going to be? Or I'm never going to be a mom. Like I just went into the depths of despair, and it kind of went like that, just so extreme, back and forth. I wasn't sharing with anyone that this is what I was going through. Yeah, it was essentially like a Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of moment, right? Or weeks, right? And what kind of experience is that to have? It's not the place that you want to be when you're trying to bring a new life into this world or welcome a new life. And again, it was just for me, it was not a good experience. As you guys know, I've shared my personal story with you. That transfer ended up ending in an early miscarriage. And again, that was obviously really challenging as well. But I'm moving on to my second transfer. It was a lot better. I was already doing some work on myself. I felt like I was in a really good place. And so I avoided a lot of the mistakes that I'm going to share with you guys today in this episode. I've actually learned a few extra ones since that time of my second transfer as I've delved more into the psychology of fertility and kind of working with clients and learning from other experts out there too. They've made a huge difference in some of the work I've done with my clients. And I'm sharing it all with you guys here today because, again, I find these mistakes to be pretty pervasive. They happen to so many of us. I don't want that for you, right? So you don't have to have a dreaded 2-week wait. You can learn from me here, and we're going to get into that right now. Here are 10 mistakes that you want to avoid when you're in your next 2-week wait. So the first one I want to get into is actually really interesting and pretty fun to do. So I actually did apply this to my second transfer, and it felt so good to get to do it. And so what the mistake is not allowing yourself just full-on moments of joy and humor and laughing essentially after, your transfer or during your 2-week wait. So essentially getting some humor in your life. This is actually based on a study of 229 women that underwent IVF. So that's a pretty large sample size. And they actually found that there was a statistically significant difference for the women who underwent a 15-minute visit from actually a medical clown, believe it or not, right? So they're laughing, they're having a good time, and their embryo transfer increased their pregnancy rate at 2.6 times more, right? As compared to women who didn't have a clown visit. So this was definitely an unexpected outcome. The study even factored in age, the nature of their fertility issue, and the numbers of the embryos that were transferred. Experts theorized that comedy, laughing, increased IVF success rates by acting in the same kind of mechanisms as acupuncture. I know some of you might have heard about acupuncture studies as far as them increasing pregnancy rates after transfer. I'm actually getting into that with my acupuncture expert, Melissa Maher, this season as well. But it essentially acts similarly to that in that it's relaxing your body stress and creating an environment favorable to implantation. So essentially, don't just sit and kind of watch or not allow yourself to laugh, to kind of be in this serious state this whole time, right? We want to go watch a comedy movie, go watch something that's going to bring you joy, put a smile to your face. That is what you need to be doing. The more laughs, the better. So for me, I hunkered down. Old School is one of my favorite movies. I love the scene where Frank gets tranquilized on accident and falls into the pool. It makes me laugh every time. So whatever that is for you, pop that on. Essentially, if you're doing an IVF or an IUI type transfer, you want to do that pretty much right when you get home. That would be great. Continue to add in that joy. Continue to surround yourself with things that are going to make you laugh instead of just kind of keeping it mum. Make sure to not make that mistake. That one will definitely help you feel better and increase your pregnancy rates. The next mistake that I want to share with you guys is if you are unbalanced, don't be unbalanced in your free time and your scheduled activities. So essentially what I'm talking about here is there can be times in which I've heard women talk about, okay, it's my 2-week wait. I really want to be extra careful and I don't want to do anything at all. I'm not going to go to work. I'm not going to make any plans. I'm just going to, sit here and not and think about my pregnancy, right? Or think about this working out. The other end of the spectrum is when we overschedule ourselves. So we immediately maybe go back to work. We fill up our entire time with scheduled activities because we don't want to think about it, right? And both of them can be not the best for you mentally. On one hand, if you're completely filled with activities, you are potentially overtaxing yourself. You're adding more stress into your life. You're overwhelming yourself. And none of that is good for you, for your body, and for potentially securing a pregnancy. On the other end, if you're not doing anything, you likely will drive yourself crazy by thinking about all of the symptoms and probably overthinking all of them as well. So again, you'll pay attention to every detail and every minute will feel like an hour. So you want to have a balance there between that free time and scheduled activities. Some of us are a little more prone to enjoying a little bit more free time, and some of us are a little prone to driving ourselves crazy with too much free time. So you're going to have to find what's going to work for you. And, essentially that might even involve taking maybe half days at work as well. So there's lots of different options. But again, finding that balance and striking that is going to be key to helping you have an ideal 2-week weight. Now, on that note of doing activities and things and having a schedule, I think another mistake people make is not filling up their time with things that actually bring joy, and also things that, spending time with people that you love, and things that actually are going to help your body really move the needle as far as deep relaxation, deep de-stressing. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about things like, okay, again, as we talked about earlier, watch a movie. Yes, that's great. We love that for you. But we want to go a little bit above and beyond those things to another level, right? A deeper level. And those things can be something like, again, healthy outlets for you, which would be like meditation, working on your breath work, doing something like journaling, and trying to really release any sort of that anxiety or built up worry, any thoughts of hopelessness, letting those things out, right? I also did things like some 2-week weight yoga, which is available on YouTube. You can find that. But again, of course, talking with your doctor for some of those ideas. But those things can really make an impact on your physical body, on your mind, and they also reduce inflammation throughout your body, which is going to help you with implantation, right? So again, we want to fill our schedule with things that are going to bring you to a place of calm during your 2-week wait, because we know we're already going to be naturally prone to being overly anxious, to being overly worried. That is so normal for everyone. So we want to balance that out and add in some deeply calming activities. And also, again, things that you actually really enjoy doing. So hanging out with friends, doing whatever it is that brings you joy. Let's focus on those things right now. So that is number 3. So let's move on to mistake number 4. Has infertility taken too much from you? Are you unsure how you can keep going on this path? Maybe you've tried some affirmations, but it's just not cutting it. If this sounds like you need the Resilience Roadmap for Trying to Conceive. It's a free step-by-step guide to reclaim your joy and unpause your life that I use with clients to get unparalleled results. Get yours today by going to www.leanicolecoaching.com. That's LEANICOLE coaching.com, or check the show notes for the link. And that is letting your thoughts run rampant. When we are in a time in our life when there's heightened emotions going on, and again, in the 2-week wait, that is the epitome of heightened emotions going on. So whenever that happens in our lives, we are primed as humans to get caught up, more likely to get caught up in negative thinking, right? So we have to make sure that you're checking yourself when that is happening. And this is something that, again, even, somebody who's trained in psychology, we are human. It's going to happen, but it's not about just letting those thoughts run rampant and then kind of ruining our whole day and outlook. It's about noticing when we have those thoughts, shutting it down and reframing it. So that will actually, again, set the tone for your day. And again, we want to catch those thoughts because the more times we have them, the more likely we continue to have more. It's kind of like a negative cycle. It's a function of our brain as well. So when we have these thoughts that tend to turn negative, we start to build almost like superhighways in our brain, and it makes those thoughts more easily to pass through and more likely, again, to come up and to have control over our lives. So we want to, again, nip those in the bud. So what I'm talking about here is, for me, I often would think, I'm not pregnant. It's not happening. It's going to be negative, right? Those are the thoughts that I essentially had. And sometimes they would turn even more sour and they would turn into things like, I'm never going to be a mom. This is never going to work out for me. I even got to a point where I'd be like, and I remember it during the 2-week wait, and I was like, this isn't going to happen. I'm never going to be a mom. My life is essentially pointless. Like, that's how bad I kind of started to fall off the wagon on my negative thoughts. So essentially what needs to happen is catching that and not let it run away with you. So we're going to catch it and you're going to say, like, reality check here. I don't know what's going to happen. I could be pregnant. I am in this waiting period and I will soon know if there's a good chance that I could be pregnant. Those are the types of reality thoughts that we need to have and reframe. And again, catch ourselves, reframe them. And when you have that type of a reality check where I say, you know what, I totally could be pregnant versus I'm never going to be pregnant and I'm never going to be a mom and my life is worthless. Those two different self-talks have totally different responses that your body is going to have on a emotional level and then a behavioral level as well, right? If I'm telling myself that this is never going to happen, I'm going to curl up and want to be in bed all day and be sad, right? Essentially, I'm not going to want to do any of those activities that I mentioned to you earlier, like spending time with people I love, versus telling myself, I totally could be pregnant right now. I just don't know yet. And I'm going to give myself the time and grace to see how this plays out, right? That's a totally different way to look at it and is going to impact the rest of my day. And that's what I meant earlier when I said the tone of the day. So that is a really important one. Number 5, another mistake that I think that I see people make during the 2-week wait is completely immobilizing themselves. What I mean by that is sometimes we think that maybe when we have a transfer or we might be pregnant, we put ourselves in bed. We don't move at all. We think that even daily activities or functioning is going to cause harm to this potential pregnancy or ruin it for us, right? Now, let me stipulate this by some doctors do recommend that you reduce activity right after a transfer. If you did get a transfer or are doing an IUI, some docs do recommend that, but it's normally for the first day or two. It's not the entirety of the 2-week wait. And if there is a special circumstance in which, for whatever reason, that is the recommendation from you, your doctor will tell you that. But that is probably far and few between. So for the majority of us, I think that we can make the mistake by just thinking that we can't move or else it's going to ruin the pregnancy. My response to that is you do need to move your body. It's important for us to move our body to help restore some sense of normalcy during this 2-week wait. And also, movement helps your body release any sort of built up tension and anxiety. And again, I'm not saying go run a marathon. That is totally unreasonable at this point. But I'm talking about gentle exercise, gentle movement. So, walking, right? Going for a walk, gentle yoga, a swim. And again, waiting to enter the water until the time period is correct after you have a transfer. I know there's normally a time where you should not be in the water or in hot water as well. So, keeping all that in mind, doing some gentle movement is so helpful for you. Your embryo will not fall out by standing up, right? There is no science to that. And additionally, with the movement, you want some blood flow to that area, right? And the only way that you can get that, or a great way to get that, is by moving your body, right? So we want to do that. We want to get new, fresh blood to the area, and we want to help our emotional state as well. So movement is our friend during the 2-week wait. But again, keeping in mind what your doctor has recommended for you specifically. All right, moving on, guys. The sixth mistake that I see people making, and this one's pretty rampant, especially on Facebook groups, is this is your personal invite to join our exclusive Facebook group to dive deeper into the world of fertility with bonus clips, behind-the-scenes content, and intimate discussions. Here you can connect with fellow tribe members, share your experiences, and contribute your insights to shape the future of the show. And it's easy to join. Just search Tru Fertility Tribe on Facebook, answer a few questions, and you're in. I also have the direct link in the show notes below. See you there. The sixth mistake that I see people making, and this one's pretty rampant, especially on Facebook groups, is testing early. So I know the temptation, but please don't, right? And there's a lot of reasons why. So what I mean by testing early is sometimes when you have, a transfer, you have a specific day in which you are supposed to take your blood draw, and that is going to be kind of the most accurate way to assess whether or not you are pregnant. But I have seen some people testing or trying to test as soon as like a day or two after their transfer. And again, if you're not doing IVF and you're trying naturally, this would be essentially trying to test before you were even supposed to have your period. I know that it's exciting. I know you want to know immediately, but please don't. And the reason is because the first thing is it's not reliable, right? If you're testing too early, you don't know if those results are 100% accurate, if it's negative, right? It's totally possible that you could have maybe a later implantation. It's totally possible that you're pregnant, but hormone levels of the pregnancy hormone just haven't gotten to the high enough level for it to show on a pregnancy test. And so you don't want to trick yourself and say, so if you test and then it's negative, and then you're like, well, it could be late implantation or maybe it's not ready yet. You're just going to get into a testing frenzy and continue to test. So it's not even really going to give you the answers that you want. And then two, once you start testing, you can't stop, right? So even if it comes out positive, lots of people, great, you see a very faint line, and then you're going to test again, like maybe that afternoon, and you want to then start comparing your line to the previous line before, which again, pregnancy tests don't really work like that. Again, sometimes different pregnancy tests can be, have a darker dye, and then you may be comparing apples to oranges, right? And that's just going to drive you crazy. Essentially, too, you may be compelled to want to compare your, how quickly you got a positive to another woman's positive, and then think that somehow your pregnancy isn't going as well. And that just adds extra stress and anxiety to your journey. So we don't want to test early. You want to give that embryo time to really implant and give you a valid reading before you start going down that endless tunnel of testing, retesting, and comparing. So that is definitely something that I would recommend to not do testing early. And kind of on that note, number 7, my biggest mistake is Googling symptoms or symptom checking. So we don't want to do that. Again, as I mentioned in the intro of this episode, my first transfer, I again took copious notes of every single sensation that I felt during my 2-week wait by day. And again, I feel slightly bloated. I felt a fluttering sensation, feeling a little bit tired. My boob hurt. I'm having a cramp. And then the next day, I wouldn't have symptoms. And it scared the shit out of me. The thing about symptoms is, yes, it is possible that some of the symptoms that you are experiencing are signs of pregnancy, right? But it's also possible that those symptoms that you are having are actually signs or symptoms related to any extra hormones that you may be taking or period typical PMS symptoms. And so it's so confusing. And additionally, symptoms vary significantly between women and also between pregnancies. So the same woman could have, set of symptoms her first pregnancy, and the second pregnancy she could have like no symptoms. So it's kind of like a lost cause to symptom track. Additionally, it is totally normal for symptoms to come and go, even though, again, if you have any symptoms that you are associating with pregnancy and then you don't have them the next day, it starts messing with your mind and thinking that, again, this isn't working. But even though that is normal. And last but not least, there are some people that have no pregnancy symptoms at all, but they are 100% pregnant. So, Googling symptoms, monitoring symptoms, comparing symptoms, that is not going to be helpful for you during your 2-week wait. It will just add extra stress, extra anxiety to your journey. So let's not do that. Let's wait until you have a solid pregnancy test before you can know if you're pregnant. Mistake number 8, waiting until you see that pregnancy test to act like you're pregnant. Sometimes we want to wait until we have full confirmation that we're pregnant before we start taking care of ourselves the way that we need to when we are pregnant. So what I want you guys to embrace is that I'm going to act as if I'm pregnant until told otherwise, or I'm pregnant until told otherwise. Treat yourself that way. So get good sleep, right? Nourish yourself with healthy food. Don't drink alcohol, right? At this point, take a prenatal. You want to honor the fact that your body could be carrying this beautiful life that you've been wanting. And so we need to treat it accordingly and take care of yourself from the very beginning. Even if it doesn't come out your way this particular round or 2-week wait, you're only doing yourself and your body favors, right? And to helping to continue to have optimal health to help you in the future. Mistake number 9, being afraid of hope. So many women don't want to feel hopeful during their 2-week wait. They avoid hope because they feel like, or they're worried that if for some reason the test is negative, they're not pregnant, that using or getting their hopes up is going to be detrimental for them, that the fall is going to be harder if they would have been hopeful, right? Or if they are hopeful. But I urge you guys to think differently about this because these 2 weeks are going to pass regardless. And do you want to spend them feeling down and disappointed? Or do you want to spend these days feeling happy and hopeful? Essentially, the choice is yours. And this idea that thinking that, again, if I am hopeful, oh, it's going to just hurt so much more if I'm not pregnant. I really want to push you on that and question you on that, because would it really hurt less? I think for many of us, no, right? It would still be a loss. It would still hurt us. We'd still have to deal with that loss and grieve that cycle essentially, regardless if we were hopeful or not. So why not let yourself enjoy the moment, enjoy the possibility, and live in that hope for a period of time. And then, if it doesn't work out, we can deal with that at that point. But being negative the whole time and thinking it's not going to happen, it's not going to do you any favors. So I know that one can be a hard one, and I want to honor your feelings as well, of course. But maybe instead of just being negative, maybe journaling that out and saying, like, why am I not being hopeful? Is it really going to hurt less if don't allow myself to have these glimmers of optimism, and really kind of find that out for yourself. All right. Last one, guys. So, number 10 mistake is thinking that if it's not this time, it's never, right? So, I know you've put a lot of work into getting pregnant and that you want it to happen this cycle or this transfer, right? But again, putting all of this weight, all of this stress on yourself and the outcome, it really isn't helpful to you. I want you to remember that if not this time, it can be next time, right? This isn't necessarily the end all be all. If it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're completely out of options and that your dreams of motherhood are completely over. And I know maybe in certain circumstances, there may be even extra pressure on yourselves. Maybe this is your last embryo. I can understand that there's going to be more weight on this particular transfer in that particular situation. But again, even if the worst case happened, there still can be other options available that maybe you haven't looked at yet, but that might be an alternative route for you to eventually be a mother if that is still in your heart. So remember, if not this time, there can be a next time or another way. I hope you guys enjoyed me going through those 10 different mistakes that I've made, that plenty of my clients have made, that plenty of women have made on their 2-week journey. I know this is a super stressful time, but recognizing these mistakes and learning from them is the best thing that you can do for yourself, because I know at some point or another, you will be in a 2-week wait. And I want that time to be a time of happiness for you, a time of vibrancy for you, and a time that you can look back and hopefully remember on a positive note, because there's certainly a good chance that it can actually turn out the way that you want it. And, again, I wish you the absolute best on this time of your life. Let's go through the mistakes one more time, because I know we went through many of them. The first one is not allowing yourself some laughter in your life. So we want to, again, watch a comedy, have those big belly laughs in your life. That's mistake number one. The second mistake is not having a balance between free time and scheduled activities. The third mistake is not doing activities that bring you calm and joy to your life. The fourth mistake is not catching and adjusting any of those negative thoughts. The fifth mistake is movement, so not moving. We want to move in our life. The sixth mistake is testing early. We don't want to do that. Seventh mistake is Googling symptoms or symptom checking. Eighth mistake is not acting as if you are pregnant during your 2-week wait and treating your body accordingly. The ninth mistake is not allowing yourself to have any hope. And the 10th mistake is thinking that this is the end all be all of this cycle. I hope that this next 2-week wait leads you to the baby that you've been dreaming of. And if you need any more support on your fertility journey, let me know. I'm here for you. Thank you for allowing me to share these stories, information, and tips with you, or really just allowing me to connect with you on a subject that's so dear and important to your life. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and do me a solid and share this with your friends or anyone that you think might benefit from hearing this. Also, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or review for a deeper dive on today's episode, bonus content, and to connect with others in this space. I invite you to join Tru Fertility Tribe Facebook group. And last but not least, let's be friends on Instagram, where I post almost daily. You can find me at Tru Fertility. Wishing you all baby dust. Till next time. Bye.